I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our combined series of Dave versus the MSM and Operation Freedom Briefing. Thank you for taking the time to join us today, and thank you for taking the time to network this information to all those you know and love who, about 99.9% of what we're going to talk about today, they have no clue. It's not because they're ignorant or uneducated. No, unfortunately, they're just tuned in to what's still what we call the bought-off lamestream fake media. And they, therefore, are misinformed, disinformed, and completely uninformed. And that's where you come in. Take this information. Let me be by a guy. Yeah? Take this information, this video, and network it with them. That way, they're not calling you a conspiracy theorist. They'll just call me a conspiracy theorist. And it's actually, might be conspiracy, but it's conspiracy reality. We're available 24/7 at davejana.com in content I cannot discuss on social media platforms or else I get. Or on the radio because of the deep state choke points within the FCC that would take Wham Talk 1600's radio station down. So yeah, we do the radio show every Sunday afternoon starting at 2 o'clock. You can stream it live and free at davejana.com. We have our news ticker at davejana.com. Again, a tremendous amount of free content. News ticker that I don't know of any other site that has it, that our IT team continually is updating it. And then if you click on each issue coming by, each little subject on the news ticker, you click it, it'll go to the story itself. So I encourage you to at least use that. I also encourage you to become a member of our Freedom family, our subscription content, where we provide 4 to 5 other video format shows every week. You have exclusive access to the podcast for the radio show, all of our archives, our email alert service, all for 30 cents a day, $9 a month. Become part of our Freedom family. It's a month-to-month sign-up, so sign up for a month. Try it. You'll like it, as that old commercial says. In fact, no, try it. You'll love it. Because the content we provide puts you months and years ahead of the global constructed curve. The content I provide is based on the contacts that I have developed over the past 37 years from behind the curtain. I don't know of anyone else that has that. And luckily for all of us, they're willing to speak with me about it, and then I'm willing to deliver to you. Today I want to talk about the cult and their never-ending lust for war. And the fact that the cult needs war to distract the public from the financial collapse that's in the process of occurring. Oh, Dave, everything's fine on the financial front. No. Bond markets around the world are imploding, melting down. I know the bought-off lamestream fake media is not telling you about it. The stock market's being propped up in the United States by 6 or 7 stocks. Delinquencies on credit cards are through the roof. Our national debt is $37 trillion and growing, and that's just the tip of the iceberg at $37 trillion. That doesn't include the unfunded liabilities and mandates. That's a couple $100 trillion. No, all's not well. The dollar is continually being depreciated, as is your purchasing power. They tell us inflation's, maybe 3%. Really? Wouldn't you love to see some of those government dweebs actually go to a grocery store? Are your prices up 3%? Of course they're not. They're up a lot more than 3%. Cost of living is up much more than 3%. And that's not an accident, it's not a coincidence. It's all part of their freedom stripping plan. But they need and cherish war. Because out of war, their playbook tells them, and history tells them, the globalist syndicate will get more power, control, and financial resources. And in the process, the added benefit, as they see it, because they're truly psychopaths, that, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and Lazards and the Pinkets and the Warburgs and Seifs and the Loebs and the Pessoa family, they don't go to war. But the Jandas and the Smiths and the Joneses and everyone, all of us, go to war. And we're the ones who are dying. And that's fine with them. Yeah. There was a military leader, let's call him, thug, back in World War II, said the following quote, "Naturally, the common people don't want war." That's right, we don't. "But after all, it's the leaders of a country who determine the policy, and it's always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it's a democracy or a fascist dictatorship or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders through propaganda. That's easy. All you have to do is tell them that they're being attacked, denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism, and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in every country," end quote. That was Hermann Goering from Nazi fame. He was right. Still is. We're seeing it all over again. Look at the Russia-Ukraine situation. The problem is very few people want, all of us want peace, but very few people in leadership, let's just call them what they are, puppets of the globalist syndicate, none of them want peace. They all want war. Donald Trump, when he was campaigning, said, "I think I can end this thing in 24, 48 hours. It's not like he hasn't tried. It's not like people around him haven't tried. But it's the syndicate, the globalist syndicate, that's throwing every roadblock possible to block peace and actually escalate war. I've spoken to you over the years about a major general, the most decorated Marine in U.S. history, Smedley Butler. He wrote a book, 1930s, War is a Racket. Yeah, he was right. He talked about the fact that it was after he got out of the military that he realized that he went to war to help banksters. That it was the banksters that were pushing, like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Zards, the Pickettses, the Warburgs, the Sees, the Loebs, the Pacers, that were pushing the war agenda. And I'm an old guy. I was first brought to Washington in '88 to work as an advisor and a consultant to the Reagan administration on healthcare policy. So I have about 37 years in the swamp, wading through it with big hip waders on. And I must say, there's really only one person that has really continually pushed for peace, and that's Ron Paul. He recently penned a brief article, and I want to bring it to your attention because nobody in the bought-off lamestream fake media or independent media that I'm aware of has brought this forward, but I will. It's entitled, "President Trump Should Return to an America First Foreign Policy." After 4 years of unnecessarily confrontational foreign policy under Biden, Americans elected Donald Trump in part for his promise to put America first at home and overseas. He promised a war-weary America that he would start no new wars and would get us out of the existing ones. Over 8 months into his second administration, it appears his promise remains to be fulfilled, as his approval rating has slipped a bit. There is still some time for President Trump to change course and fulfill his promises to the American people. Put Ukraine and Russia on notice that from this point, the United States is withdrawing from any role in the conflict. Let the Europeans work it out if they feel it's in their interest. Getting us out of NATO is also a good idea. End U.S. financial and military support for an Israel that cannot seem to get along with its neighbors. We recently had Israel again bombing Qatar. Perhaps without the U.S. backstopping Israel's warmongering, the country and its leadership would start to reflect on the wisdom of starting wars with multiple countries in its neighborhood. Stop trying to overthrow Venezuela's Maduro and everyone else the neocons have placed on the hit list. End all sanctions and open up trade instead. Maduro's failed socialist economic policy will be his undoing, not America's sanctions or saber rattling. America first, above all, means, quote, just come home, end quote. It's that simple. Well, let's hope we do come home. And I don't mean in body bags. I mean coming home, alive and well. But the globalists have rigged the system, financial system, to come down. And they need a huge distraction so that when the system comes down, you don't point at them because they're the perpetrators of the real collapse, financial collapse, that will affect billions, hundreds of billions of people around the world. Oh, no, no. They want to create a diversion so that you say, oh, it's that war escalating in Russia, Ukraine. It's that war escalating in the Middle East. It's that war escalating in Indochina. No. It's all because of them. And it's purposeful. And they need to escalate that war, and that's exactly what they're doing. You see, they need a distraction because right now, if you look at Europe, from a societal and economic standpoint, they are collapsing. And the last thing they need is peace internationally. They need conflict. Many people are saying, why are these European, quote, leaders, use that term loosely, World Economic Forum, globalist puppets is more accurate. Why are they talking about sending their young men and women to the battlefield in Ukraine? It's because of what's happening back home. And they need, as Goering said, to create a situation where the people are dragged to war as a distraction. EU accelerating toward collapse. This is from Thomas Colby. Merz, Draghi, and Lagarde reveal Europe's crisis path. The German chancellor seems to have collided with reality during the summer break. Merz sees the German social system in deep crisis. Meanwhile, his political allies in Brussels are calling for an increase in the very dose of poison that's making Europe sick. Draghi, the former head of the European Central Bank, reiterated his familiar demand that the European Union must act more cohesively, like a single state. With this nationalism, oh no. More of the medicine that made Europe sick, more centralization, less subsidiarity, and intensified technocratic rule. Draghi once again demonstrates Brussels' plan, as during the sovereign debt crisis 15 years ago. Power, more power concentrated in Brussels, decision outside democratic control, enforced by a political apparatus orchestrating media narratives. Strict censorship, media manipulation, dirty tools to silence opposition to centralization. The same authoritarian logic that worked then is again being revived. And that, folks, is why the EU wants more war, more death, more destruction in Ukraine, and why they want to escalate the war with Russia. A distraction to the economic and societal issues in Europe, and because they're being instructed to by their bankster puppeteers. Unless you think that, oh, this can't happen. This is from Steve Watson. World War III? French hospitals have been told to prepare for a major military engagement within 6 months. The French Ministry of Health put out a directive to the hospitals in France recently. French hospitals have been advised to prepare for a large-scale war by next year. There are reports that the French Ministry of Health has informed hospitals to prepare for a major military engagement by March 2026. The letter allegedly states that between 10,000 to 50,000 people are to be expected in hospitals. The leaked letter also reportedly explains that mass casualties are to be expected not just from its own forces, but wounded soldiers from across Europe, and that France would be acting as a rear base. It outlines how French hospitals will need to prepare for, listen to this, for up to 50,000 beds allocated to wounded civilians and military personnel every month. The Ministry of Health also noted that it's considering the creation of medical centers near ports and airports to help with evacuations. Earlier this year, the French government sent a survival manual to every household in France, warning them of an imminent threat to the country. No, they're serious. because they know the system is coming down. Now, there was a meeting recently in China of some entity that I've spoken about for years called the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, SCO. The big players there were Russia, China, and India. But there were also 100 other countries there. These are entities that are banding together to try to minimize the financial collapse on their societies. Professor Rule Pepa recently wrote, "The rise of a multipolar world order, the West just watched the world shift in China." At the recent Shanghai Cooperative Organization Summit in Tianjin, leaders representing over half of humanity signaled the rise of a multipolar world order as China, Russia, India, and Central Asia push new financial and trade systems to bypass the West and the U.S. When the leaders of China, Russia, India, and several Central Asian states gathered in Tianjin last week for the Shanghai Cooperative Organization Summit, the world should have paid far closer attention. Collectively, the countries represented at the table account for more than half of humanity, command immense reserves of natural resources, and increasingly drive a larger share of global GDP. What unfolded in Tianjin was not just another regional summit. It was the clearest indication yet that the unipolar world of U.S. primacy, which dominated the decades after the Cold War, is giving way to a new and contested multipolar order. It was a milestone in the slow but unmistakable rebalancing of global power in a process that will define international politics for decades to come. You see, at this meeting, they spoke about new trading platforms, new trading currencies that actually based on physical assets, gold, silver, oil, natural gas. And the syndicate believes that one way to try to tamp down the BRICS group, Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, plus 100 some other countries, and the Shanghai Cooperative Organization that has very similar members, is to war their way out of it. Well, you might say, I'm one person, we're one family. We live here in Montana. There's nothing we can do. Yeah, there is. Let me call on my 37 years experience in the swamp. See, the last thing that a politician will admit, but they know, is the power rests with you. But they're hoping that you're just on the couch and you're mute and you're silent and you're just clued into what my parents used to call the boob tube and their propaganda, and you're not really following along. Because what scares each and every one of them, not just in D.C., but every state capital, even your local representatives, if that's what you want to call them, is if you're wise to an issue and they're not on board and doing something about it. So the single most effective thing you can do is get on the phone. Yeah, on the phone. Call the White House. Now listen, a concern is President Trump isn't getting a lot of information because his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, is blocking a lot of the information and people coming in to see him that have a different opinion on different issues that aren't globalists, that she seems to love the globalists. But he does wander down to the switchboard almost every day. How many calls we get? What are they calling about? What are they saying? Yeah. You call. Be nice, pleasant, patriotic, peacefully. I'd like the president to know that I support President Trump, but America first. America first, Ron Paul's right, means America coming home. Americans coming home. No more of this war stuff. No. Enough. Enough of money going to Ukraine just to be stolen. Enough of the money going to Israel. If we want to do trade with them, great. But enough of this giveaway stuff and giving away of weapons. No more of that. Stop. We got a lot of problems here at home. We got a huge problem with the homeless. We got a huge problem with what happened with the border for 8 years of Obama and 4 years of the Biden-Harris goat rodeo. We have a lot of problems here. Let's spend the money here if we're going to spend it. Better yet, why don't we just give it back to all those taxpayers that are getting their pockets picked every single day? No, we're wise. We're wise to the war stuff. And war is a racket. No more. You do the same thing to your congressmen and your senators in D.C. You do the same thing to the governor's office in your respective state. And your members of the House and Senate in your state. And your local. Well, I'm just a local guy. What do you want me? Oh, no, dude or dudette. You are networked with all the people up the food chain. No. We want to see some action right here at home, locally. Of people, Americans being the priority. Not a bunch of warmongers in far-off lands. You see, if we can undermine their warmongering operation, you undermine their entire operation. President Trump has an incredibly hard job. There's a financial reset going on. He has to thread a very fine needle with a very small thread. If we can take the war card off the table, that eye of the needle gets bigger and much easier to thread. Well, time to get at it. No couch, no boob tube. Use your phone. Use your phone. Make those calls. Put them on notice that you know what's going on and you expect them to do the right thing. I thank you for joining me today. We are available 24/7 at davejana.com. Stop on by. You will never be disappointed when you go to davejana.com. But, promise, you will be educated and thereby empowered. I thank you for joining me today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.